Hi Bunbury, how are you? So nice to be here. I love this state. It's always been very special to me. My mother was a West Australian.
Sorry.
What's up?
I'm just going to put it back to
Okay, shall I start again?
Yeah.
No. Mum was a West Australian and I spent 5 years over here training at one stage with the great Shirley Strickland. Not a nice woman, but she was a good athlete, good coach, and we totally fought the whole way for the number of years we were here. 27 years ago, my life changed like many of yours in the room when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was a pretty sudden thing and it came out of left field. I did not expect it. I did not think I was in line to get a cancer at all, but it happened. I was 44 years old. Don't add that up now, please. It's my birthday on Saturday. Don't upset me. I was still my racing weight. Bloody sight smaller than now, let me tell you. And I was running 5K a day, working in horticulture, which I loved, I was passionate about, but became very paranoid about hurting my left arm and ending up with lymphedema that Pia was talking about. I guess everyone's mentioned lymphedema. And I was buying my own home, so I was finally in a good place after running. There was no pressure on me and life was good. When I thought back and I compare what happened and my life as an athlete I live with pressure, the pressure of competition, the pressure of training and travelling alone, the isolation away from my friends and family. That was hard, going to Europe and spending months and months and months away, living on the smell of an oily rag and travelling on my own. And also the Eastern Europeans and what the Eastern European countries were doing with their athletes were so sad and so challenging for someone who never cheated in her life. There was enormous media expectation on me, which made life extremely difficult. Hiding from the media isn't easy. And fear of failure. I was scared to not win in the end. It was very important that I went out there and represented my talent and my professional life as it was in an amateur way, and won races. Sounds simple. I can't even explain what I think about sport now when I think of the life I've had, because what is running really? I mean, anyone can run across the room, across the street, but I guess I did it better than anyone else. I also worried about my finances. I had no money and we were amateurs. How I scraped together the money to travel, I don't know. I think probably I had good people who were willing to pay for airfares, like Puma, like Nike, and it did make a difference. But some nights when I lived in London with a couple of other athletes, we used to make a decision on the way home from training, which we probably did very poorly because there was no one there whipping us, whether we'd eat or whether we'd drink that night. We usually drank and then we begged as much food as we could from anywhere else. There was enormous financial stress and letting the people of this country, this great country, and of course my own talent down. It was a tough time, but it was very different to my BC diagnosis. As an athlete, I was totally in control of my life. I trained hard, I competed well. I didn't train hard, I always lost. And there was a bit of that in my career. I think you've got to lose to know what it's like to win well. So I understood the situation as an athlete, and it was simple, as I just said. You win, or you train hard, you win. You don't train hard, you lose. It was very different to my BC time. I was in this new situation where I was totally not in control of my life. I didn't understand it at all. I had no idea what was going on. I was just being pushed from pillar to post. And I was going on drugs that were against my philosophy of life, that I believed that as a principled athlete, you didn't cheat by taking drugs. So taking drugs was something that I found extremely difficult to do, but I had to do that to ensure that I had a life ahead of me. So briefly, my story was mammogram after I found a lump, surgery, scans, surgery, then 7 months of chemo, 36 radiation treatments. It was an extremely large year. Added to that, my mother died 5 weeks after my diagnosis, so we didn't tell her I was unwell. We decided that she didn't need to have that going to her grave. I did it through winter in Melbourne. Bunbury is bad, but Melbourne's shithouse. Okay. I lost my job as a horticulturist, a gardener in the local, beautiful local garden. I moved interstate to get away from the cold. And I had a long relationship end, which made it all extremely uncomfortable. And once again, I didn't know what my destiny was. I didn't know where I was going. After treatment finished, I thought, well, that's it. It's done. I've had my lot. It won't recur again. I don't have to think about that again. I just need to get on with my life and to live well. Well, that didn't really happen. We had I had quite a few other situations that really drove me to the point of insanity. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer twice, just before the Sydney Olympics, but don't worry about that because I wasn't competing. I was sitting next to Bruce McAvaney commentating, which was quite comfortable, and because I'd been ill, I got it really easy. He didn't make me work too hard at all. Probably one of the best things that I did there was call Kathy Freeman's race with him, and that'll be something that stays in my mind forever. She's a dear friend. My appendix blew out, my gallbladder blew out. I had 3 lots of heart surgery, then the 4th they put a pacemaker in, so that's why I move slowly. It's keeping me well paced. I found out I had epilepsy, and now I've got a tremor, as you can see. I haven't got Parkinson's, I've got a tremor that drives me insane because there's no way I can stop it. Probably the most upsetting thing was that I was following in my mother's footsteps with depression. And that really knocked me around because I watched her in her life as a daughter watching her mother, and I couldn't understand how at times she didn't love us, at times she didn't know us. And I swore blind that I would never suffer with depression. It did come along, and it is still there and will be there forever. I didn't want to live like her, so I tried to control it for many years. I went to a psychiatrist in Melbourne, Rosie. Rosie was wonderful. She'd bring her dog into the consultations because I'm a dog person. And in the end, Rosie said to me, Raelene, it's a waste of time you coming down from Queensland. Why don't you just give up and go somewhere else because I can't do anything to help you. The pills were driving me insane and doing awful things to me. I was hiding from the world very often, and it was very easy to do that in Budrum. In Queensland because no one was really there at that stage. Everyone's run there since COVID. Finally, I got so sick of all of this stuff that was going on, and I really got sick of it. I decided that I would go back to what I knew best. And what I knew best was exercise and getting out and doing something in the garden, which is a form of exercise. So I became proactive and I went back to the gym and I started walking my dog every day for 5K. Princess Charlie of Budrum. I loved Michelle, your golden retriever, at the end. My princess is a golden retriever too. She's a little bitch. I garden. I do lots of things that I include in my exercise program if I do happen to fall over a vacuum cleaner and have to use it. That's exercise. So in my exercise program for the day, there's lots of components to it. But the most important ones are walking Charlie and going to the gym. My personal trainer that I go to 3 times a week, he is quite amazed at how physically strong I still am. He doesn't realise how mentally weak I am these days, and I do give in quite easily. I do things that make me happy. In life we do a lot of things that we don't want to do, but we've got to do because we've got kids or we've got a husband or we've got a mortgage to pay, or not that you can stop doing that. But I do the things that make me happy. I mix with the people I want to mix with. I gave up mixing with a whole lot of people who, I don't know, maybe wanted to mix with me, but I had nothing in common with them, and I found them boring. And certainly most uninteresting people I'd ever met, some of them. And I say no to all requests these days. I started saying no after my epilepsy diagnosis because I did get very stressed about staying in hotel rooms on my own in case I had a grand mal, and might have solved a few problems for a lot of people, but I did decide that I would stop working then and spend less time on my own. I stopped working. I had worked extremely hard since I stopped running, and certainly with my diagnosis with breast cancer and the Sydney Olympics coming on 4 years later, I was given a lot of opportunities that made a big difference to my financial life, and I took most of those on with the big people like BHP Billiton, NAB, MLC, City of Sydney. A whole lot of stuff came along, and I did as many of them as I could, and I certainly saved as much as I could, which put me in a very good position now to be able to do what I want to do, which includes still Breast Cancer Network Australia stuff. I threw one of the greatest joys I had. I threw my business clothes away. I hate them. I was brought up in T-shirts and shorts. To have to bloody dress properly for these corporates drove me insane. And to wear makeup, so I just packed it all up and chucked it out, and it was a great day. Fantastic day. I've come a long way since that diagnosis and that time. I know that my life will never go back to what it was before my breast cancer. I've come to that realisation and resolution with myself that it's probably made me a better person, because it means that I have to do something to help others. The fear, the tiredness, holding family and friends together. I got sick of having a cuddle with friends and family and saying, it'll be okay. I was thinking, why the hell aren't you saying to me, it'll be okay? Or can I help you in some way? Or can I cook dinner tomorrow night? But I was holding them together. Organising work, I don't have to do that anymore. And worrying about my future and if there was one. It's all finished. I don't think about that anymore. I try to cope with just day-by-day stuff and living it as it comes. Back in when did I meet Lynn? 28 years ago? No. 96, 97. I'd had so many organisations try to tap me on the shoulder and say, please become involved with us. One was, I want you to drink your first morning urine, and then as you get used to that, you can build up through the day and drink all of your urine through the day. Well, no, thank you very much. I know what I put in the other end. And that was just one, there were so many, there were hundreds. I had a cupboard in my home full of absolute rubbish that I don't believe in. I'm not alternative in any way, shape or form. And so this person came along. I was at my first appearance after my breast cancer, and I was not coping, as you know, with a little bit of hot flush stuff happening, and also fear and reaction from the people around me and the media. There were too many media there. And I was some cancer thing I was launching, grant for a researcher. Anyway, this strange person who'd been stalking me through friends and family and any way she could, I asked my minder to take me to the lift, and we got to the lift and got in, and this strange foot came through the door, and on the other end of the foot it was Lynn Swinburne. By the time we'd gone down to stories, she'd actually given me the idea of the concept of what her idea was for BCNA, Breast Cancer Network Australia, what she felt could change, how she could fix things that needed to be fixed. And it just made sense to me. It was wonderful. And all of a sudden, this new life came into my life where, she was a strong person, is a strong person, and she really worked me hard. But it was great because I need someone to lead me. And the fantastic years, 24 years I spent on the board of the network, watching it change, seeing it grow today, has really made me realise that in life you do have to give a bit back. And it was my form of giving back. And from that, I got an awful lot out of it. One of the fantastic things that we did was, for my 50th birthday, 20 years ago, we had a 50th birthday party with my 1,100 closest personal friends. And Sorry? As long as I had money, they could come. Geez, that was hard work, getting people to come to a function and pay. Anyway, they came. And the network needed money. That was the secondary thing. But the primary thing was that a drug called Herceptin was the network and many other organisations had been pushing to get through onto the PBS. And it was costing women so much money. And there was about, I think, 11% of the diagnoses were of HER2 positive diagnosis back then. And so we did the last stage, the final stage of our lobbying for that drug to be passed onto the PBS with John Howard. And the poor bastard, we sat in between Lynn and myself, and the only thing we had on the agenda was to talk to him about Herceptin and to convince him to put it onto the PBS. Well, the night went very well. And he wrote down the name of the drug and he put it in his top pocket, and within 2 or 3 weeks it was passed not onto the PBS but the like situation where it didn't cost the patient 70 or 80,000 or whatever it was going to cost. And it was a fantastic way for me to spend my 50th birthday. John was good, he didn't leave the party, he stayed there. Am I stuffing things up by pressing buttons? No, I'm not. I'm completely computer illiterate. I can just barely use a mobile phone and I love it. He stayed, he danced with all of the young girls with HER2 positive breast cancer, and he had the best time. And he was supposed to leave at something like 9:30 and he left at about 11:15. And we knew we were on a winner once we'd engaged him in that way. 10 years later, we didn't have anything to lobby for, but we had Julia Gillard at my 60th birthday. And she wasn't quite as interested in anything really, she just wanted to go home. So that was a fun night as well. Another one I had to dress up for. Really great. So life's good now. I've got a very nice life on the Sunshine Coast. I'm not needy, I don't want much. I've got a nice home, I've got a nice partner, I've got a beautiful dog and a great place to live in. And I do my exercise, I participate in community stuff, and I really enjoy what I have without expecting too much more. And I do believe that there are lots of good times in the future to come, like my recent holiday in the Kimberleys, which is what I like to spend money on rather than going overseas. I prefer to see this country, and particularly this side of the country up the top. I hope you'll all take something positive out of today. The girls work hard. Our network team works extremely hard. We change over staff a bit, like any business, but the new people, the new staff pick up the whole concept and the emotion about it very quickly because we are all so passionate. Kirsten's doing a fantastic job as a CEO. Her passion and her years that she's been with us put her in a great position to have extremely large knowledge of all corners of breast cancer, not just one or the other. Thanks for coming today. I hope you've all got something you'll be able to take away from it. So this far, all I can say is that I've survived. I'm alive and I'm enjoying my life, and that's all you can wish for, really. And I accept what's gone on in my life, and I don't dwell on it, but I don't ever forget it because it makes me enjoy things more. So cheers, thank you for having me in Bunbury, and I'll see you again sometime.